Welcome back. It's 4:20, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Our next presentation is the thesis work of Sophia Utria, who worked with Dr. Alan Altamont to create When She Breathes In, Abuse and Missing Perspectives on Stage and Screen. Sophia has an actor who's going to help present what she wrote. So in just a moment, I'm going to unmute both of them. And Sophia can introduce her project. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Sophia and to Wes.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Well, I'm Sophia. I am a senior BFA acting student, and my thesis was When She Breathes In. Storytelling means everything to me. The way we tell stories matters. The perspective that every story on stage and screen is told from is vital, but I think we often forget that. While it's not common, plotlines of abusive relationships can be easily found in plays, movies, and television. Time and time again, these plots end up minimizing or erasing the abuse done at the expense of the victim. Most of these characters are in physically abusive relationships with their significant other. These kinds of abusive relationships are really the only kind that most audiences will get to see, but they are not the only kind that exist. I know that from personal experience, having lived through mental and emotional abuse at the hands of someone who was not a romantic partner. Watching this content play out was difficult, but I also found it just increasingly more frustrating. For one reason or another, these stories I was seeing felt like they could never have been written from the perspective of someone who had experienced that abuse. Eventually, I got so fed up seeing the mishandled stories, I decided to do something about it. I wrote a play. When She Breathes In is a play surrounding an abusive romantic relationship. The process of writing it was about as disjointed as the timeline that plays out on stage. This story isn't told chronologically. The play is based off my own experiences and required a great deal of reflection and pulling directly from memory. The way in which I and those affected by this abuser remember these experiences is not linear. It's fragmented, and the memories you join together are seemingly unrelated to someone on the outside of this experience. Irene, my leading lady, is the one in charge of telling the story. Her memories of Luke, her ex-boyfriend, are being played out as she navigates the process of healing and taking back her narrative. While Irene and I are not meant to be carbon copies, her journey is very much the same one that I went on to write this play. As I wrote, I found myself falling into the same trap that I had been judging for so long. I wanted to give Luke a break, to make him more likable, to lose the blame somehow. And as much as I love a good villain, I hesitated to address the truly awful things someone can do without ever laying a hand on a person. Eventually, through some time and some patience, that began to change. One thing I knew from the start is that I never wanted to show Luke actually hitting Irene. Every single time I had seen abuse on stage, it was accompanied with gratuitous violence. After a lot of deliberation, I did include moments of physical abuse, but they are not explicit. They are symbolic, told through movement a lot closer to something like a dance. I didn't do this just to avoid triggering myself or someone in the audience. This was one of the original problems I had seen with the content being produced. Abuse always felt like a plotline that was an excuse to have actors fight each other over something other than a love triangle or a bar fight. The end game for these plots was always spectacle. The goal with When She Breathes In is not to have the story be a platform for spectacle, but for discussion. The reason I was motivated to write this play in the first place was to fill a gap in the stories that I was seeing, to give a voice to something I felt had been silent for too long. In order to do that, I had to change the way that I was presenting this narrative. I found through writing this play that taking back a narrative can be just as difficult as creating a coherent one. I wanted to take the world out of the play just a touch out of reality. This is partially because I wanted audiences to see depictions of dissociation and the feeling of being disconnected from the world around you at the hands of an abuser. It's also because this story is not just mine. By pulling these characters out of their world for just a moment, they become more universal. The voices are not just one writer's, but ones that can be linked to other people's experiences as well. The end result of this are scenes at the opening of the play in which 4 actors are telling stories of 4 different relationships. As much as I wanted to share my perspective and add something new to the canon, I knew this story had to reach more than just myself to be effective. The scenes with characters speaking as different voices are based off the stories told to me by friends and family. They are real, they are just not specifically mine. Broadening the scope, if only for a moment, made the world of the play accessible to more audiences and something that I hope can be a propeller of discussion about the abuse we don't always see. Writing When She Breathes In strengthened my voice as a writer and a survivor. This play gave me the opportunity to dissect why certain stories matter to me, why I feel the need to tell them, and how I plan on doing that in the future. This writing process developed what we call in my acting classes a personal practice. It required setting timers and alarms, being my own critic and editor, and working daily towards this much larger goal. Telling a story like this isn't challenging because of the content, it's challenging because it's true, because it's based in reality. But the work of simply creating, I discovered, is never fruitless. We will now be reading the opening scenes from When She Breathes In. Weston Smith is a senior in the BFA acting program with me, and he'll be reading for the characters of Luke and two of the other voices. I'll be reading two of the voices and Irene. I do want to lay out just a bit of a trigger warning in case anyone feels uncomfortable with some of the content. Please take care of yourselves above all other things. I just need to pull up my version of the script. Weston, are you okay? Can you?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome.
All right, I'm going to be reading a few stage directions just so everyone knows where we are, and we'll get started. Lights up on 4 separate sections of the stage. 1, 2, 3, and 4 stand in the lights. They are nowhere. He didn't hold my hand on the first date. I found out later that he wanted to.
I could smell coconut in her hair the first time we kissed.
The sexiest thing about him is his laugh.
I have never seen a more beautiful girl in my life.
Charmed everyone in the room.
My friends loved him more than I did.
It was really a passionate start.
She would never keep anything from me.
I always felt so safe with them around.
I
loved you so much.
You know I would do anything
to make us better. I hate fighting like this.
Now you're being childish.
You really have to slam the door.
This is getting a little ridiculous. Don't walk away from me.
Just please stop yelling.
Why would you say something like that?
You really should know better by now.
Just shut up already.
If you don't, I swear I'll...
You slut.
Stop lying to me.
Just put that down.
Did you ever love me?
All your fault.
You should be sorry.
I promise it won't ever happen again.
You promised. Irene and Luke enter, walking through a park. They often look at each other, but it's silent for a long time. Luke finally breaks the silence.
So I started reading the book, the one you gave me. Well, not gave me, but...
I remember.
It's not bad. I mean, hoped I would get to know you a bit more by reading it, though.
You thought reading a YA novel about an interstellar jewel thief would help you get to know me better?
Well, you did write it. And besides, the main character does seem kind of like the Robin Hood type. She's stealing from all these other suppliers that get their stuff from shady places and finds ways to use her money to help the people of whatever planet she's on at the time.
You actually did read it.
Seems like a weird thing to lie about. A poor one, really, considering who I'm talking to. I'm not very far off.
It sounds like you are.
I'm not. It's all purely speculative. The book could actually be terrible. I don't know yet.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. That was dumb. I am really liking it so far.
Well, at least I'll have another fan if this date doesn't go well.
You would have that if the date did go well, too.
Are you having fun?
Fun?
This date, is it fun? Simple question.
It's a nice night, had some good food, walking and talking with a beautiful girl.
Woman.
What?
Woman, not girl.
Walking and talking with a beautiful woman. What's not like?
Okay then. I had fun too.
Had? Past tense?
Yes, had. This is my building. I'm not asking you to come up.
I thought we were having fun.
I know. That's why I'm not asking yet.
I will wait for the day you do.
Good night, Luke.
Irene,
Yes,
you look really beautiful tonight.
you said that.
I thought it again. Irene,
Yes.
I think I forgot something.
Phone, wallet, keys.
May I?
They kiss. It's cute.
Good night.
Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Sophia.
That's all she wrote. Literally.
Sophia, thank you so much. And Wes, thank you for supporting her. Before we get to Q&A, I'm going to turn things over to Professor Altamont, Sophia's advisor, to say a few things about working with her on this project. And if anyone has questions for Sophia, if you could type them into the chat, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think he's muted.
There. How about
Okay.
now? Is that better?
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I think it's always a privilege for me to work with a student who is taking on the kind of subject matter that Sophia took on with this play. We met for fairly long sessions and had lots of really interesting and I think provocative conversations. And she always showed a kind of fearlessness about delving into this material and developing the characters, and also finding, you know, really unconventional ways of telling her story. And so that it was very exciting for me to sort of help her out in whatever way I could in this process. It's always great when you can see a script done in what's called a cold reading or a table reading, and of course that's what would have happened here today. And you got a little taste of that now, but I certainly regret, I'm sure everyone does, what's happened with everything. But I'm really tickled with what she's produced, and I look forward to reading the final draft of it. But thank you, Sophia, for doing such a great job with it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Professor Altamont, for supporting Sophia. This is normally when you get to give her her honors stole, but
Right.
Instead it's in the mail.
It came. It's next to me,
excellent.
actually.
Excellent. Good. You should be wearing it. And we already have some questions, Sophia. So
Mhm.
you have many congratulations and notes of how wonderful this
you.
was. And Professor Hammonds is asking you what the toughest part of writing dialogue was.
Making it sound normal. I had a bad habit of making everyone talk way more formally than I think anyone does in their day-to-day conversation, especially a character that you don't see here. She has a best friend, Dominic, and they were far too formal and uptight with each other to have known each other for so long. Making people sound more normal and a little bit more relaxed was a challenge, just because I felt like I wanted everybody to say everything, and that's not necessarily their job. So that's definitely been one of the hardest things to work on, is making it feel relaxed and appropriate to the different relationships that these people actually have.
Great, thank you. And Wes is asking, if you were able to incorporate actors, can you describe what process you would like to have taken in rehearsals and execution of a live piece?
So for the scenes that we had read, I think that if I was able to do this live with other actors, I probably would have chosen a different scene. I probably still would have done the opening scene. I think it really defines a couple of really important parts of the play, hence why it's at the beginning. I definitely wouldn't have acted in it. I would want to see other people take on the work. As far as rehearsals go, for something like this that is still fairly new and can still be tinkered with, it wouldn't function like a traditional play with like costumes, scripts out of hand, lights and sound and all that. I would much rather it's like a sit down reading with like scripts in front of them, much more personal and intimate. I think it serves the story well to have a space where actors can get up and play if they want to, but I think at this stage with it still being so new, I don't think it's necessary. But I would have loved to see 4 actors on stage, and I probably would have picked a different scene that included Dominic as well.
Great, thank you. We have a couple more questions. These are coming in from Annie, who's writing, did you ever feel stuck within your theme or find yourself analyzing the path of the story because you had a specific goal? Were you able to balance, were you able to have organic pieces of the process too? Question mark, balance, question mark, journaling, interviews?
I think the thing that I felt stuck with as far as theme, and I mean, I mentioned it a little bit, was wanting to make a villain, but balancing, not necessarily apologizing for Luke's character, but also like taking away the things that made him a villain for the sake of making him more palatable, and then going to the other extreme where he's completely, there's not like a depth to him as a character because he's just pure evil. And I think that was one of the biggest things with the goal that I had of telling my story and telling stories that were similar to mine, is that it's not always so black and white. And especially with mental and emotional abuse, it's something that's really, really hard to draw a distinct line between with their relationships with other people. Oftentimes the abusers don't come across as like your traditional scary villain in a story like this because they aren't that way with other people. And so one of the biggest things that I had as far as balancing went was kind of like finding the middle ground of, this is Irene's story. She is the person who is telling it from her perspective. So it is his job as like a villain of the story to not be the greatest person in the world. But I would be doing disservice to myself and to the voice that I'm trying to give by not giving him any kind of, by not being able to redeem him in any way. Because he's not totally bad to every single person. He wouldn't be a 3-dimensional character that way. There was a lot of journaling. I actually started journaling about stuff like this my freshman year of college, and it has ultimately culminated in something like this. But balance with Luke was probably the hardest part about balancing my goal and then like what other people would perceive this show as. Are there any other questions?
I think that's it. Sophia, thank you so much. Thank you, Wes, for helping realize this presentation. Thanks to Professor Altamont for supporting Sophia on this journey. We have another presentation starting at 4:45. It's the last one in this room. As you know, we have 3 other rooms going simultaneously too. So thank you everyone for being here. As you may know, these are all going to be posted. So if you want to revisit any of these presentations or see any that you missed, you'll have the ability to do so. But Sophia, thank you so much again, and congratulations.
Thank you.